Hello, and welcome to session 3, where we're going to be talking about living with stress, not in spite of it, against it. We need to live with it. So, some of the things we'll cover today, we have a finger trap exercise, basically a metaphor talking about why pulling harder on stress actually makes it tighter and tougher to deal with versus walking with it or moving with it. We'll go through a ball in the pool activity, why pushing thoughts away only makes them bounce back stronger. And then we're going to talk about this at the end and wrap it up on how does this apply to your particular situation. So when we think about stressors, avoiding it only really brings it closer. So we call this experiential avoidance. It's trying to push away thoughts or feelings to make them stop. So in plain language, the more you try not to think about something, the louder it gets privately. Thoughts like, I'm a bad caregiver, or I did this to my child, don't go away by fighting them. They get stronger. So think about that. The more you think, I can't do this, this is in my head, I'm a bad caregiver, it becomes a thought. It becomes a fact in your life because you're thinking about that concept over and over and over again. By saying, I don't want to think about that I am, insert negative thought, the more you're thinking about it. So we have to work with this. So example, telling yourself, I don't think about the tantrum, then it's all you think about. What we'll learn instead is noticing that the thought is there, letting it float, and choosing to act anyway, not trying to push it away as it comes up in our thoughts and our feelings and our emotions, but walking with it. Because the harder you pull, the tighter it gets. The harder you try to push it down, the higher it bounces back. So there's a finger trap activity. Now you might not have seen these before, but it looks like a little tube where you put your fingers in on each side. And to be able to get out of that tube, you can't just pull. It gets tighter and tighter and tighter. What you have to do is push inward. So we're going to do an exercise similar to this. So you can grab a finger trap, or you can just do this as a writing exercise. So write 1 to 3 words on a finger trap and what stresses you about your child. What labels do you give yourself as a caregiver? What aspects about being a caregiver can be stressful for you? And write that down on your piece of paper. Now, if you're using an actual finger trap device, you can actually pull this apart and feel how tight it gets. The harder you try to escape it, the more you try to feel. If you're just writing this out, think to yourself, I won't think about this, and then put your negative thought on there. So I won't think about this negative thought I have of myself. I won't think about this negative thought I have about myself. I won't think about this negative thought I have about myself. And the more you think that, the tighter that becomes fused with your thoughts and how you view yourself. Now what we're going to think about is pushing in. How do you gently push your fingers towards each other if you're using an actual finger trap? And notice how you can move freely. The trap loosens when you stop fighting it. If you're just writing this down, think about, okay, these are thoughts that I am having. Not that I am a, and then insert your negative thought. It is, this is a thought I am having, and you're walking with it. So the lesson here is the more you try to fight your stress, the worse it gets. We want to try to move with it, understanding that these thoughts and feels are something to be observed, not something to take over our lives. Similar to what we've had in previous sessions, where we are just observing the thoughts and feels, this is how we're pulling this in this particular activity. Another related one is a ball in the pool. So what I want you to try to think about is if you're in a body of water, and you can actually do this at home too, you can put a big pot of water and put a little ball in there. When you try to push the ball down, that's like trying to push away your thoughts and feels, it snaps back up and it gets higher and higher every time you try to push harder on it. So this time what I want you to do is you can actually write on this ball or imagine that you're writing on this ball things like stressed, angry, scared, incompetent, or whatever other feel that you're feeling in that particular moment. And we have to float it, right? Place the ball in the water. You could do this in your mind's eye. You can do this actually with a ball in a pot of water, whatever floats your boat. Watch it float there. Is this ball hurting you? Can you still move it around? It's just there. We're noticing these thoughts and feels. Now try to push it down. Push the ball underwater. Imagine you doing that if you don't actually have a ball in water. Feel the pressure on your hand. Notice how much effort it takes to keep it down there. So you have those negative thoughts and feels. Before, it was just floating, right? And it wasn't hurting you. It was just there. But when you try to push it down, you're spending a lot of energy trying to hide it below the surface. And ultimately, you have to let go, release the ball, watch it shoot back up if you're pushing it down. And it shoots back up harder than it was before. That's what happens when you try to push your thoughts away. You want it to float there. You want it to sit and observe and just be. Because the more effort you put in trying to escape, the more it will try to push back. Because when our thoughts just float there, you can just notice them. You're living with them and still acting while they are present. Your life is still moving on. You're still moving forward, even though those thoughts and feelings are there. You don't need to push them away to be a good caregiver. The energy you save not fighting your thoughts can go towards helping your child and go towards having a fun relationship. You don't have to spend the time to think of what you're not doing correctly or incorrectly or what have you. Spend that extra energy to bring some happiness. And finally, it's okay to feel angry, scared, or overwhelmed and still show up. Part of caregiving is feeling all of those feelings at the same time. You can be angry and scared and overwhelmed while also feeling happy. I like to say a lot of times as a parent, it's like every emotion all the time. All at once, and it can be very stressful to be able to do something like that. But if we notice these things that are passing through us and with us, we're not trying to push them away and spending the energy there. We observe the thoughts and feels that are there, and we move with that to do some action and to create an environment of success for yourself and your child. So let's talk about it, right? Think of a time when you felt like you couldn't escape your own thoughts during your child's behavior. What was going on in your head? What were you thinking? What labels came up? What did your body feel like? Was your heart racing? Were you sweating? Were you moving faster? Did you shut down? Were you looking all around the room? There's almost a survival response here in these situations sometimes when we get really stressed. What did your body feel like in that moment? And then what did you actually do? Did it work for your child? Did it work for you? Right? This is kind of like our antecedent behavior consequences. This is thinking about internal thoughts and external behaviors and how that's all tied to our body in those particular moments. We have to notice and observe those things in order to create a better environment for ourselves so that that saved energy can go towards creating a better environment of success, safety, and happiness. And again, there's no wrong answers here. This isn't about fixing. It's about noticing, observing, and moving forward. So some of the key takeaways: fighting your stress makes it tighter, just like the finger trap. Pushing thoughts away only makes them bounce back harder, like our ball activity in the water. You can feel angry, scared, overwhelmed, and still be a great caregiver and find happiness in those moments. This is not an either or, this is an and also situation. So this week, I want you to try to notice your thoughts without pushing them away. If there's happy times, sit with those. If there's sad times, sit with that. If you're angry, sit with that. What does that look like? What does that feel like? And what did you do in response to it? Because ultimately, pushing it away only brings it closer. Moving with it sets you free.